In the world of glittering lights and mirrored reflections, my life danced to the rhythm of snipping scissors and whispered confidences. The beauty parlor was my domain, a place where I, Francesca, brought out the hidden beauty in others, wielding my brush and shears like an artist with her palette. My life, much like my work, was composed and predictable, neatly arranged into satisfying patterns of familiarity and comfort. At the center of this comforting predictability was Simon, my boyfriend of 3 years, whose steadfast love was as comforting as a well-worn sweater, soft and ever-present. On a particularly unremarkable Tuesday, that comfort was challenged, not with a whisper but a roar, as Johnny walked into the parlor. He was the antithesis of my neatly ordered world, tall, with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance, and tattoos that crawled up his arms like vines of inked stories. He was here to fix our lighting, a task deemed essential by my boss to enhance our burgeoning online presence. To show off our skills in the best light, she had said, not realizing the double entendre until Johnny stepped through the door. "Looks like you could use some light in your life," he joked, setting down his toolbox with a clank that seemed to echo off the walls of my suddenly too small world. I laughed, a sound that felt foreign and too loud in my ears. "You have no idea." As he began to work, I found myself stealing glances, intrigued by the way his muscles moved under his tattooed skin, each movement precise and sure. Johnny was like a storm, I thought, dangerous yet mesmerizing in his beauty. Our first real conversation happened over a tangled mess of wires and fluorescent tubes. "Ever think about what all these lights hide?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the air. I paused, the question catching me off guard. "I suppose I've always focused more on what they reveal." He smiled then, a grin that spoke of secrets and unspoken challenges. "Maybe it's time to look at the shadows instead." It was a moment that marked the beginning of something, a spark that threatened to ignite a fire I wasn't sure I could control. Johnny, with his easy charm and hidden depths, was a puzzle I found myself wanting to solve, even as I reminded myself of Simon, the man who had been my rock for years. Simon was everything Johnny wasn't: steady, reliable, and safe. He was the kind of man you built a life with, not one you embarked on a fleeting adventure with. Yet, as Johnny and I laughed over a shared joke, his hand briefly touching mine as he handed me a bulb, I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to step into the unknown, to let the shadows reveal what I'd been too afraid to see. The days blurred into one another, each moment with Johnny feeding a curiosity I hadn't known I possessed. We talked about everything and nothing, our conversations a tapestry of hidden meanings and unasked questions. He showed me his tattoos, explaining the stories behind them with a candor that felt like a gift. There was one, a phoenix rising from the ashes, that he said represented his belief in second chances, in the beauty of rising from one's failures stronger and more beautiful. It was in these moments, caught between the light and shadows, that I found myself at a crossroads. Simon, with his unwavering love, represented the safety of the day, while Johnny, with his mysterious allure, beckoned me towards the intoxicating unknown of the night. As I watched Johnny pack up his tools, the repaired lights casting stark shadows across his face, I realized that this was more than just a choice between two men. It was a choice between who I was and who I might become, between the comfort of the known and the thrilling fear of the unknown. The beauty parlor, once a place of simple routines, had become the stage for a far more complex drama, one where the heart was the prize and the stakes were nothing less than my very soul. In that moment, under the harsh glare of the newly fixed lights, I understood that the journey ahead would be fraught with choices and challenges. And as Johnny waved goodbye, his smile a promise of stories yet to unfold, I knew that my world would never be the same again. As I stepped into the beauty parlor 2 weeks after Johnny had completed his initial job, the atmosphere was abuzz with a new kind of energy. My boss had decided to propel our presence into the limelight with a commercial, a glossy showcase of our talents aimed at drawing new clients. I was to be featured prominently, a decision that flattered yet unnerved me. Johnny and his crew returned to set up the intricate lighting that would bathe us in the most flattering glow. Watching him work, I couldn't help but notice how the days apart had only heightened his allure. He moved with a purpose, his tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, each one telling a story I found myself wanting to unravel. The day of the shoot was a flurry of activity. Between takes, I found myself fumbling over my lines, the words tangling on my tongue. It wasn't like me to be so distracted, but every glance at Johnny, every smirk and wink he sent my way, left my mind reeling. Sensing my frustration, Johnny approached me under the pretense of checking a nearby light. "Need some help?" he asked, his voice a low hum that sent shivers down my spine. I nodded, grateful yet embarrassed at my own vulnerability. "I can't seem to get these lines right," I admitted, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. With a patient smile, Johnny took the script from my hands, his fingers brushing against mine. "Let's take it one line at a time," he suggested, his gaze locking with mine. As we practiced, I found my nervousness fading, replaced by a warmth that radiated from Johnny's proximity. His praise when I finally got a line right felt like a personal victory, one that was sweetened by his approving nod. The day wound down, the successful takes celebrated with cheers and sighs of relief. As the crew packed up, I noticed Johnny heading towards a sleek motorcycle parked outside, its chrome accents glinting in the fading light. The sight of him straddling the bike, his silhouette a portrait of rebellion and freedom, stirred something within me. I was supposed to have dinner with Simon tonight, our usual Thursday date night. Yet, as Johnny caught my eye and tossed me a helmet, the promise of adventure pulsing in the air between us, I found myself walking towards him, drawn like a moth to a flame. "Ever been to an art museum at night?" he asked, his voice teasing yet sincere. I shook my head, my voice barely above a whisper. "No, I haven't." "There's a first time for everything," he replied, his smile inviting and dangerous all at once. The decision was reckless, a betrayal of the safe life I had built with Simon. Yet, as I climbed onto the motorcycle, wrapping my arms around Johnny's waist, I felt a rush of exhilaration. The engine roared to life beneath us, and as we sped off into the night, I pressed closer to him, the strength of his body a solid reassurance against the uncertainty of my actions. The museum was a revelation. The art pieces bathed in the soft glow of nighttime lighting, creating an ambience that was both ethereal and intimate. Johnny led me through the exhibits, his commentary a mix of knowledgeable insights and playful banter. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of us exploring the depths of human expression through the ages. As we stood before a painting of a tempestuous sea, Johnny's voice softened. "Life's a bit like this painting, don't you think? Chaotic, unpredictable, but beautiful in its intensity." I glanced at him, struck by the vulnerability in his gaze. "Yes, it is," I whispered, my heart aching with the complexity of my feelings. The night wore on, each moment with Johnny peeling back layers of a life I had never dared to explore. When he finally dropped me off, the sky tinged with the early hues of dawn, I felt a pang of regret. Not for the night we had shared, but for the realization that I was returning to a world that no longer fit me as perfectly as it once had. Climbing off the motorcycle, I turned to Johnny, the words of thanks dying on my lips as he leaned in, his kiss a promise of more, of a life lived in the vibrant hues of passion and discovery. As he drove away, the sound of his motorcycle a fading echo in the quiet street, I knew that the decision looming before me was no longer a choice between two men, but a choice between two lives. Simon represented the comfort of the known, a harbor in the storm, while Johnny offered the thrill of the unknown, a voyage into uncharted waters. The night at the museum had shown me a glimpse of what lay beyond the safety of the shore, a taste of the adventure that awaited if I dared to chase the tempest. Walking into the dimly lit apartment, the events of the night replaying like a vivid dream, I found Simon asleep on the couch, the gentle rise and fall of his chest a testament to the peaceful world he inhabited. My heart clenched at the sight, a silent witness to the love and stability he represented. Yet, the electric thrill of the night's adventure pulsed through me, a stark contrast to the calm domesticity of our shared space. I nudged Simon awake, the words tumbling from my lips in a hurried explanation about leaving my car at work. The lie tasted bitter, but the truth, that I had spent the night exploring art and possibilities with Johnny, felt like a confession too heavy to bear. Simon, ever understanding, simply nodded and promised to drive me in the morning, no questions asked. The ride to the beauty parlor the next day was a quiet affair, Simon's presence a comforting constant, yet my mind raced with thoughts of Johnny. As I stepped out of the car, barely whispering a thank you without our usual goodbye kiss, guilt gnawed at me, a reminder of the duplicity my life had become. Seeing Johnny's motorcycle parked outside sent a jolt of excitement through me, a physical reaction that both scared and exhilarated me. The realization that the commercial shoot was ending, and with it, any excuse to see Johnny, filled me with an unexpected sense of loss. Throughout the day, I found myself watching him, memorizing the way he moved, the sound of his laughter, the stories told by the ink on his skin. The idea of not seeing him again, of letting whatever was between us fade into a memory, was unacceptable. I convinced myself that asking for his number was simply a way to keep a new friend, nothing more. Yet, the flutter in my chest at the thought of calling him belied my true feelings. As the day drew to a close and the golden hues of evening bathed the world in a soft light, I saw Johnny packing up. My heart pounded as I approached him, rehearsing what I would say. "Johnny, I think we should just be friends," I stammered, the words feeling hollow even as they left my lips. "Last night was wonderful, but it didn't mean anything. It can't mean anything." Johnny looked at me then, his gaze intense, piercing through the armor I had built around my heart. He didn't speak, his silence a question that demanded an honest answer. But before words could form, he simply said, "Get on the motorcycle. I want to show you something." The ride was a blur of sensation, the world a streak of colors as we sped along the coastline. When we arrived at the beach, the world seemed to stand still, the roar of the ocean the only sound in the vast silence that enveloped us. Johnny pulled out a bottle of Pinot Grigio and 2 glasses from his backpack, a small gesture that spoke volumes of the thought he put into this moment. As we talked, the wine loosening our tongues and inhibitions, I couldn't help but stare at him, the moonlight casting his features in a soft glow that made my heart ache. In a moment of reckless abandon, I closed the distance between us, our lips meeting in a hot and passionate kiss that felt like coming home. The world fell away, leaving only the heat between us, a passion that demanded expression. There on the beach, under the watchful gaze of the stars, we gave in to the desire that had been simmering between us, a connection too powerful to deny, that we started undressing each other and I was welcoming every part of him. His groans and my moans sounded like the perfect symphony to express our longing tension. It was a night of discovery, of exploring the depths of a connection that went beyond physical attraction. With Johnny, I felt seen, understood in a way that transcended words, and I could honestly say how we had sex. Simon and I never have before. The intensity of what we shared was unlike anything I had ever experienced, a memory that would be etched in my heart forever. As the night gave way to the soft light of dawn, we lay together on the beach, the world around us awakening to a new day. The reality of what this meant of the choices I faced loomed large. Yet in that moment, wrapped in Johnny's arms, the world outside seemed inconsequential. The journey back to the parlor was a silent one, each of us lost in our thoughts, the weight of the night's revelations a shared burden. As we said goodbye, the promise of what could be hung in the air between us, a tantalizing possibility that defied the confines of my carefully constructed life. I walked back into my world, the memory of the night at the beach a secret flame that burned within me, a beacon that illuminated the path to a future I had never dared to imagine. The choice I faced was no longer between two men, but between the life I had always known and the one that lay just beyond the horizon, a life filled with passion, thrill, and excitement.